We are not just trying to find the people who are lost, but the lost voices, the lost stories, and the lost hope of their loved ones as well.
The two boys that were in the vehicle and their parents that helped cover up the vehicle are all guilty.
We want the families to know that people still give a damn.
I saw my father put his hands around her neck, and then he carried her out of my sight.
Our name is also our mission. We are locating the lost.
I've accepted my brother's death. I can still talk to him. I just don't see him physically. And I know I'm a believer that I'm going to see him again one day.
And we are live. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Yes, thank you everyone so much. And for those who have never watched one of our podcasts, tonight's just Jeff and I. These ones tend to give me some anxiety when it's just us two talking, Jeff.
Yeah, it might be a bit on the shorter side, although we do have a lot to read from. But if people who normally watch us, we had to change our intro a little bit. We might have gotten hit with a copyright because we were using music that we weren't supposed to. Travis.
Hey, it said copyright free music, so apparently we weren't supposed to use it.
Yeah, that nonsense happens. It is what it is. Tonight we're going to be talking about Daniel Wood Jr., who went missing from Gray, Maine. I don't have the dates up here. When was it?
He was found deceased July 31st, 1954.
Oh, yes. Okay. How long before that did he go missing?
July 22nd, so that would be 8-9 days.
So he missed about, this is sort of an off-the-cuff sort of thing. We didn't have a guest for tonight, so, sorry that you guys have to just watch us.
Yeah, this case was, Corey James had sent us a link about this case, and so I thought it was a good one to try to cover. I researched this one a while ago, probably like 3 or 4 years ago, honestly, so it's been a while since I looked into this case at all, but it is pretty interesting, right? Little town of Gray, Maine, and boy goes missing, then later found in the Androscoggin River.
It's almost been 71 years, so we're probably not breaking any, we're probably not finding anything new here, but, something interesting to talk about.
Yeah, and just for transparency's sake, we're going to be reading an article written on the coldcasenewengland.org website. And actually, Jeff, I'll put that in the chat here.
Yeah, if anyone wants to follow along or read directly from it, you're more than welcome.
So we do appreciate them. They did a great job with this article. So I'm going to
we'll probably be skipping a couple parts because it is very long. We're definitely going to be skipping the first part. It's more or less just a description of, Gray, Maine, where he went missing from, and a little bit of the background for it.
Yeah. So it begins. Gray, Maine is a very distinguished location. The small but bustling town sits just half-hour north of coastal city of Portland. Is best known for its distinct locale. The olden and familiar Maine saying, "You can't get there from here," surely does not apply. Gray's crossroads of sort, intersecting of state routes 4, 26, 63, 100, 115, and 202. So a lot of traffic passed through there, right?
I thought we were skipping the first 2 paragraphs, but I guess.
Oh, okay.
No. Anyways, no. The quaint town harbors a tumultuous past, having been burned to the ground not once, not twice, but in the course of its settlement. But twice in the course of its settlement. But succeeding its violent conception, Gray competently overshadowed by bygone ferocity with a new age of progressivism. The construction of America's first wool mill in the town soil, encouraged by a burgeoning economy. And Gray thrived. Things were good. By the early 1950s, the area had a new and improved reputation. Employment opportunities, low crime rates, and the striking scenery made it a desirable area in which to live. But the summer of 1954, Gray's small town charm would concede to more darkness. a calculated evil unlike any they'd experienced before.
Yeah, so 12-year-old Daniel Kenneth Wood. Let's see, let me get his picture up here. 12-year-old Daniel Kenneth Wood Jr. lived in Gray, Maine, with his mother, father, and 3 siblings. Daniel, or Danny as he was affectionately known, enjoyed playing baseball, basketball, and fishing with friends. The preteen was tall for his age and weighed roughly 100 pounds. Glasses sat atop his slight nose, and the boy wore a mischievous smirk in what few photographs of him are available. Yeah, I was trying to find some photos of him. There's really not a lot on here online.
But it was also back from the mid 50s, right? So if you have 2 photos of someone, it's probably pretty impressive. Oh, your microphone is not working. We cannot hear you.
Don't tell me that.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. So if you want to go ahead and read the next paragraph there.
Yeah, Daniel's mother last laid eyes on him as he dashed out the front door of their home. His fishing pole in hand. As he dashed out the front door of their home, his fishing pole in hand. A friend of his had called and only lived a short distance away. As Miss Wood tended to her younger children, she heard the distinct slam of a car door. A rarity of that time of day, the busy mother of 4 hardly had the time to consider it further before her attention was appropriated elsewhere. That is, until she received a telephone call from her son shortly after. Daniel was calling from the telephone at a corner store, roughly 3.5 miles away. He hadn't been gone long enough to arrive there on foot.
Yeah, so he basically told his mom he's going to go visit his friend, right? Then within just a few minutes, he's calling from a store that's 3.5 miles away. His mom knew that there's no way that he could have got there that quickly.
Right. Yeah. So most likely that car door was someone picking him up, right?
Yeah. Daniel's mother listened intently as he explained he had been offered a job with door-to-door salesman, making house calls for 50 cents an hour, which I assume was big money back then. Remember, and he's 12 years old at the time. He assured her he would be home before dark and swiftly hung up the phone. Hours passed, the sun set, and Daniel's chair at the dinner table remained empty. Daniel's parents contacted all friends and family they could think of, but he had not turned up anywhere. When he was reported missing, one of the first people they conferred with was Edra Wilkinson, the owner of the corner store Daniel had made the phone call from. She was unable to offer anything more than confirmation of the boy being in her store and that at which time he was there. He had run up the street after leaving the store, and she did not see him get into any vehicle. As
a more concrete timeline of events emerged, Daniel's father came to a disheartening realization. At the time that his son had run out of the corner store that afternoon, he had been at a local filling station having his car tires changed 200 feet away. Mr. Wood remarked, "Right. I'm sure he must have spotted my car. He might have thought I wouldn't let him go."
Can you imagine? This reminds me of the Kim Moreau case. Kim's parents were literally diagonal from her house when she went home, stopped and used the restroom, and then left with Brian Edmund, never to be seen again. Same type of situation here. His father was right across the street getting his car worked on. And the father thinks that he might have actually seen, Daniel might have actually seen him.
Right, and got scared. So what was his concern there, right? That the kid didn't even talk to him and ask him about it that way?
What's that? I'm sorry. I was reading that comment.
Sorry. So do you think the dad was upset that he was concerned he wasn't going to let him go, so he called his mom instead of asking his dad right across just a little bit up the road?
Right. I think the father probably knew that had he asked him, or Daniel knew that if he had asked his father, the father said, "No way, Jose. Get your ass back home."
Yeah. Who's the guy that's offering to pay you, right?
Right. So we have a comment here on YouTube from My Outdoor Life. I read the article when you posted this upcoming event. I have a 12-year-old son right now, and there's no way I'd let him go fishing or anywhere without me or his mom. Overprotective dad, I guess. Well, things are different now. Yeah,
I mean, I'd let my kids go. I mean, maybe not at 12, depending on the distance, right? If I live somewhere close to a body of water, it'd be one thing, right? But if he has to go a couple miles, yeah, probably you're gonna bring like a couple friends with you, or mom or dad's gonna go with you, something like that, right?
Yeah. And no, it's funny. It's like, we have a 12-year-old and she has her own phone. And sometimes when her friends come over, we'll let them walk to the end of our road, which is a dead end road. But the whole time I'm always like watching her on the tracker thing to see how far up she is and make sure that everything's okay. So obviously that technology wasn't available in 1954.
Right. So by July 27th, a plethora of sightings had been reported, some more tenable than others. A sighting in Worcester had been ruled out as a case of mistaken identity, and a man picked up in Portland was questioned in connection with Daniel's disappearance, but was eventually ruled out. Just as it seemed none of the leads police had come by were panning out, a few very intriguing eyewitness accounts were identified.
A young girl and schoolmate of Daniel's, Donnie Aberley, contended to have seen him on the very afternoon they went missing. Donna stated that he had seen him in a vehicle near the Dry Mills School. Daniel had shouted hello to her from a maroon sedan occupied by a dark-complexioned man with white hair, a woman, and two other children she did not recognize. The man driving the sedan had stopped, it seemed, to look at a map he held. After the brisk exchange, the man folded up the map and headed towards Little Sebago Lake on Poland Spring Road in Gray. As the vehicle sped away, Don observed the out of place license plates on the car. They were yellow, which...
So what was that at the time? Because I know now, like up this way would probably be New York, but I don't know if that was still a thing back then. What was it? Any idea what that would have been at the time?
Well, further down here, they can talk about Quebec.
Okay.
So yeah, this poor girl, she's living with us her whole life. She's probably one of the last people to see Daniel the day that he was in that vehicle.
Yeah, so what is... I find that a little... like a door-to-door salesman, like a family picks him up. That's what it sounds like, right? He was picked up by a family. Yeah,
according to this little girl,
right?
The gentleman, a female, and two other kids. Tim Humphrey says, "I lived in Gray and was the same age as Danny. Didn't know him personally, but lived through this horrible incident. I was afraid to go outside by myself for the longest time." Yeah, I was gonna say that some of the articles I read, it completely changed the landscape of the area. Kids weren't allowed to go down the road anymore. Parents wanted to know where they were at all times. Allison, it was 1954, July 22nd, 1954, he went missing, and then later his body is recovered.
So 3 other witnesses came forward from Lewiston, Maine, reporting that Daniel had been at their homes on July 27th. A boy fitting his description had knocked on their doors trying to sell needle sets. Another Connecticut woman told of her interaction with a boy who had shown up at their home to sell magazine subscriptions. When she asked him about himself, he told her that he was from New York. She found it strange that he didn't possess even a slight accent. Well, I mean, that's not... like, I don't know. I've talked to plenty of people from New York, and especially like upstate. They don't have, like, it's really like in the city sort of act. Same thing with like Mass. You're not necessarily going to run into a lot of people that have that, Bostonian sort of accent.
Mm-hmm. Deidre Emery says, "Daniel was my uncle's brother. I don't know anything about what happened or that it even happened until recently, but obviously this is a tough case for my family to discuss." Yeah, I'm
sorry to hear that, Deidre.
Yeah, we're so sorry about that. All right, so let's see. Moving right along here.
On July 28th, as police began shifting through the innumerable leads, a separate team of investigators had started to look closer to home. The Woods home. The Maine Fish and Game Department conducted a search around the property, including the woods directly behind the woods. I thought you were talking about their name, including the woods directly behind the residence. Officers found what appeared to be a bloodstained towel in the woods, which was sent off to the chief pathologist for testing in Portland, Maine. Authorities also sent a dress, which was turned over to the police by Daniel's mother. Investigators noted that it, too, possibly contained traces of blood. The nearby pond where Daniel was due to be fishing on the date of his disappearance was drained and searched. The Maine State Forestry Department was emptied to scour more heavily wooded areas within Gray. So they put in some work close by. So, man, it's wild, right? How blood at the time, like, what are they going to be able to tell from that? It's just like, could they tell blood type? Could they even do
Possibly.
that at the time?
I'm not even sure. 1954, if they could even tell blood type.
One second.
And while you're doing that, Jess Babin asks, why did he call his mom from the store? I missed that part. So basically, he had left this house. He said he's going to go to his friend's house. And then within a few minutes, he's at the store calling his mom to say that this gentleman offered him a job making 50 cents an hour to be a door-to-door salesman. She couldn't remember what he said, if it was magazines or what it was that he was selling, but that's why he called her. And Jillian is asking, what year was this? This is 1954.
So 1901 is actually when they first discovered blood types. So definitely by 1954, they could have probably tell the difference between them. But that only gets you so far, right? Because
especially if it's a popular blood type.
Right. Like 1 in 4, that's still like a 25% chance to narrow it down. But what if everyone else in the family has that same blood type? Or anyone, it's but
in the evening following the intensive search of the Woods home, his mother sat in their kitchen, still anxious and distraught. As she attempted to regain her equilibrium after all that had ensued, she was jilted out of her seat by the sound of the telephone. She picked up the phone from the receiver. The operator came on the line, inquiring if Mrs. Wood wished to accept charges for a long-distance call from Manhattan. She hesitantly agreed. I'll let you read that next part.
Yeah, the woman on the other end of the line was agitated. In a thick and unrecognizable accent, she identified her last name as being Gidson, and she began to weave a compelling story. She held firm that she knew Danny was with a man she was well acquainted with. This man, she said, had recently traveled to Maine. He was from Birmingham, Alabama, and operated a farm where he boarded children. He was mean. He drove a maroon Ford Studebaker sedan. The police were notified, but after a short time, advised the family it was likely a hoax. They were unable to locate such a man or farm. So,
the car.
That's
the car. She said that he drove a maroon Ford Studebaker,
and that's the thing, right? How much of this? So I meant to ask this earlier with the reports that he was going door to door selling this stuff. Was that information already put out there that he might be out selling stuff, or did they give descriptions of the vehicle? What sort of information was put out to the public beforehand? So
I'm not sure how much information was put out, but I will say this is one of the first cases in the state of Maine where police actually held a news conference on a missing child and tried to ask for tips. It was, I think, literally the first one ever on the local news to have a
tip line sort of deal.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Shoot. On Wednesday, July. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, if they didn't put out any of that information, like, that's the only reason why I would assume that they would call that a hoax, because if they hadn't put that information out and they considered that a hoax, that is absolute bullshit.
Yeah. Like, same color cars the little girl said that he was in.
And did they check, what was that, 1954, 1950s? Was it Alabama?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just see if I can get some images. Yeah, I'm trying to see what. Yeah, there's a lot of yellow. Some of them are kind of green, but they're still yellow. There's black and yellow. blue and yellow. There's some blacks and greens, but it's some of these are. It's possible. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
So on Wednesday, July 31st, two fishermen from Freeport, Maine, ambled down the banks of the Rocky Androscoggin River. They came upon a horrifying sight in the rushing high waters and contacted authorities. The unclad body of a young boy was pulled from the river shortly after 2:30 p.m. A length of shoestring was tied around his left wrist, indicating that he had been bound before he was killed. He had been viciously beaten. Soon thereafter, the body was identified as Daniel Wood Jr. So just awful.
Like people can be evil enough on their own, right? Do mean things to other people, but something like this to a child, to a 12-year-old, makes my blood boil.
My outdoor life has a comment here. Being so long ago that it happened, I'd be curious if the bloody material was saved. DNA could be pulled from it today, but I doubt anything found was saved back then, unfortunately. Yeah, good question. I might actually reach out to state police and see if they do have anything like that still saved. Read the next paragraph.
Yeah. So an autopsy was performed. What is that? Elucidating the horror of what is that? Elucidating? Man, these people who write these things use words I don't understand.
Smarter than us, Jim.
Elucidating the horror of what Daniel had endured. Lack of water in his lungs suggests that he was not drowned. His body was simply discarded in the swiftly moving river. Daniel's cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma from seven thrashing blows to the head, one of which nearly forced one of his eyes from its socket. Investigators believed a hefty piece of wood to be the murder weapon. That's awful. In addition to the ferocious beating, it was initially suspected that Daniel had also been sexually assaulted, as he was found without clothes. This could not be confirmed undeniably and was later accepted as a hasty and inaccurate assumption. The medical examiner determined that Daniel's body had been in the water for anywhere between 3 and 5 days, but he was unable to determine the date or time of death. So 3 and 5 days. He was missing for almost 10 days, right? Like 9 days?
Mm-hmm.
And
9 days. So if it's 3 to 5 days, that means somebody had
he was right. So the search was already on for him by the time he was killed. And maybe that's one of the reasons why he got rid of him.
And it's important to note, like, which they do here, that there's no water in his lungs. So he was dead before his body ever hit the water.
God, and just, again, doing something like that to a child. Like, beating, oh, man. Yeah.
An examination of the riverbank revealed very little. A pair of argyle socks that Daniel had been wearing on the day he went missing were found on the riverbank, but no other physical evidence was discovered. Authorities walked miles and miles upriver as it could not be known exactly where Daniel had been placed into the water. Without the presence of blood or any signs of struggle, it became clear that the riverbank was not the crime scene. So he was killed somewhere else.
Yeah, and tossed just thrown in the water like fucking trash. In the following days, investigators continued their search of the riverbank and woods as the Woods family prepared for Danny's funeral service. A few articles of clothing were found in the area that had presumably been previously searched by investigators, and Daniel's pink-rimmed glasses were located in a nearby tree. Had authorities missed this area? Had the murderer returned to the scene of the crime? As the search continued, a local farmer happened upon the broken handle of what appeared to be a sledgehammer in a field just 150 feet from the riverbank. As a good deal of rain had fallen between the preliminary search and the discovery of the snapped tool handle, it was hard to know if any blood or hair had been present. Police did not rule out anything, but could not confirm the 30-inch implement leaving as being connected to the murder.
So Deidre says, did anyone ever look into Warren Cole? So we do talk about him in a little bit, so just hang on.
Yeah. August 2nd, 1954 was the day of Daniel's funeral. The dark and somber affair began in the parlor of the Woods residence, where family and friends trickled in until standing room was scarce. Just before the funeral cortege was scheduled to leave, one last ring of the doorbell chimed through the house. At the door stood a member of the state police with a piece of paper in hand. Attorney General Alexander LaFleur had ordered a second autopsy and a battery of supplemental tests to be performed by an out-of-state pathologist and instructor at Harvard Medical School. In an instant, the funeral was canceled and the Woods family suffering prolonged. Mourners in black filed out of the Woods residence, and the procession of vehicles on the street disbanded. They would have to survive another funeral another day. Jesus, man.
That's why I put that news article in here. It shows on there that basically they paused the funeral to have a second autopsy done. That's just tragic for that family.
So something else that the glasses in the trees. I guess that's something maybe could have been there before, right? But it's hard telling, right? Like why you should be looking in 3D, right? You should be looking up, down, left, right, like everywhere around. But it is completely plausible that they just overlooked that. But to have come back and like, oh, there's some pink glasses in the tree. What are the odds that you're going to miss some pink glasses?
Or was the killer kind of mocking or teasing the police department?
Oh yeah, you missed something. I forgot this,
yeah. Who knows? It could have been like in the grass, something they missed it. So then he's like, well, I'll hang it up here so they can be sure to see it.
Yeah, make sure that they know for sure. Yeah.
So on the same day of the dramatic funeral cancellation, a suspicious man sat in the interrogation room in Westport, Maine, after being picked up the evening prior. Westport police stopped the 28-year-old Lynn, Massachusetts man for driving infraction, and in the routine of the traffic stop, noted that there were 4 young teenage boys in the vehicle with him. That's not suspicious.
Yeah.
He had picked them up in multiple locations from Portland and South Portland, and when asked by the officer what all this was, he replied, "I just like to have boys ride around with me."
What the fuck?
Oh, okay. Well, have a good day. A man named Philip Wheeler was called in by Westbrook police. They felt that enough weighed. I'm like stuttering here. They felt that enough weighed in on the interrogation that the special investigator for the Attorney General should hold the reins. No further reports show that the man was ever apprehended or charged in connection with Daniel's case. But what the hell is he doing with a carload of boys?
Yeah, just driving around picking up boys. I just like to have boys in my vehicle. What the fuck?
But it's, I mean, a cop could have just like, okay, have a good day, sir. But at least he followed up on it because it is weird, right? They did bring him in. It sounds like they didn't find any connection to the case.
Yeah, but like bringing him in for like the Daniel thing, not for this creep having like 4 random boys in his car. But anyways, as time passed, it became evident that the investigation had hit a brick wall. Investigators began extending the parameters of their inquiry in hopes of stumbling upon a lead. And what they next considered had been under their nose the entire time. On the very day that Daniel's body was found, another headline ran just below his in multiple newspapers. The international story was that of a young Canadian boy, Raymond Trudeau. Raymond had been seen on July 27th, which was the day after his birthday. And a cake and decorations would sit untouched in the Trudeau household as they searched for their son instead of throwing him his 6th birthday party.
Yeah, it's Raymond right here. This is the only picture I could find of him. So again, obviously not a real great picture, but think this poor 6-year-old boy. So
Raymond's body was found on the sidewalk of a waterfront street in Montreal in the early morning of July 31st by a local truck driver. The 37-year-old man spotted 2 cardboard boxes set out on the sidewalk, positioned next to a heaping pile of fruit and vegetable waste. What caught his eye were the remnants of newspapers sticking out of the boxes, covered in blood. The contents of the 2 packages were unspeakable. The tiny body of the 6-year-old boy had been dismembered and discarded on the street like garbage. Raymond was identified first by police, who were able to match his face to pictures they had been given upon his disappearance. His father confirmed that the red and blue striped sweater found within one of the boxes was the one he had been wearing the day he went missing. and he later identified the body in the morgue.
Awful. So this guy killed little Raymond, cut him up, left him in boxes on the sidewalk for the trash.
Yeah, in two separate boxes.
Oh, man. This is why I don't talk to many people. Whoops. Sorry, I went to go back to this other one. Yeah, so here's the news article. Dismembered body of small child is found in 2 small boxes.
And this was the 31st. This was the day that Daniel was found.
Was it? I thought it was the 27th.
Oh, was it? 1 second. Let me double check that. I thought it was...
Oh, no, you're right.
7th. My mistake. Oh, no, he was last seen on the 27th. But yeah, they
the
found
body
him.
was found on the 31st. So we were both kind of
So
right.
so they found... Yeah, they found both of the children on the same day.
Okay, so the barbaric crime stunned locals, and with a marked effort of the public to provide information, justice was swift. Within a month, a man by the name of Lucien Picard would be tried and convicted of the savage killing. The decision was met after less than 3 hours by the 6-man coroner's jury. The damning evidence being that a clipping of the advertisement found in Picard's dresser had previously fit a hole that was cut out of the newspaper used to wrap little Raymond Trudeau's dismembered body. Wacky.
Raymond had been lured and kidnapped off the street as he was walking home from visiting his father at work. Jesus. Picard brought him to the rooming house at which he lived and strangled him when he began screaming. Picard claimed he had a severe drinking problem and couldn't always recall the entirety of his actions. Lucien Picard was hanged for his crime, good, on February 11th, 1955. It should be noted that his roommate at the aforementioned rooming house was charged with gross indecency involving minors. Many have postulated that given the timeline, the proximity of Quebec to Maine, and even the yellow license plates of Quebec in 1954, the Picard was a viable suspect in Daniel's murder as well.
So Jeff, take a look at this guy. He was like 4'11". So you
Oh my
see how
God.
short he is? This picture over here to the right. Look how short he is compared to the cops and stuff. He's 4'11", targeting little kids. Little fucker.
Did they ever mention anything about the color of his vehicle? Because I mean, just a license plate, sure, but
Yeah, I tried to look for that too. They don't mention a vehicle any article I read.
okay. So Daniel Wood Jr. was violently taken from his family in the world nearly 70 years ago, and justice has never been served. The trauma that surely followed his afflicting end was monumental. Shock, disbelief, worry, and fear rippled through town, and the damage was far more reaching than just his family. An entire community mourned and feared their children were no longer safe at an age when people didn't worry about child predators. Daniel's story has been long forgotten by many, not by Gray Maine.
Yeah, and I want to put back in the comment section. That's the link to the article we read. What was the name of that? Let's see, I just had it. coldcasenewengland.org. And I looked on there. They have a lot of different stuff on there. I didn't even realize that site existed, but they have a lot of good stuff on there. So please check them out. So we're going to get into some speculation here. So I don't know if you remember Cole Farms. Did you ever go there, Jeff?
To where?
Cole
No.
Farms. That was a restaurant in Gray.
I've only been through Gray, and I think I've only been in Gray like twice.
So I know my parents, anytime that we went down through there, they loved to stop there. The food is really good, as I remember. I mean, I was a kid, I think, the last time I went. But this was opened up by Warren Cole and his brother back in 1939, I believe. But Warren Cole, later on, there's a 12-year-old boy that goes to the restaurant. Warren Cole brings him upstairs. He gets him drunk, rapes him. As the boy leaves the restaurant, he goes to cut across the road and gets hit by a car and is killed. And that's when everything came out about Warren Cole and his sick perversions with little boys. Multiple boys came forward afterwards and He was ultimately found guilty in multiple cases. Well, no, actually, I apologize. He was found guilty in this boy's death, contributing to the death, but because of the time frame of the abuse of these boys, statute of limitations had passed, so he wasn't charged with those crimes. But I wonder, could he be involved in Daniel's case? I looked everywhere for a picture of Warren Cole, and there's no picture of Warren anywhere I can find. But Warren Cole also had a good buddy, Andrew Demers, who was the state police chief, who was also picked up for pedophilia, and that was with his granddaughter, 4-year-old granddaughter. But the rumor was that Cole would feed the cops. He would always have like after parties with them and such, and that, you know, sometimes I think kids were involved, or that's the theory, is that kids were involved with these after parties and abuse was going on, and that's how Warren Cole got along.
The original fucking Epstein
away
of
with
Maine.
Yeah, he got away with it for so long because he was in bed with the cops. So it's disgusting human beings. Let's see.
So,
anyone have any comments?
What I find kind of like odd, right, is one of the things that leads me to believe that they did put out information to the public about this, right, is when they talked about, in the article, they said, 3 other witnesses came forward from Lewiston, Maine, reporting that Daniel had been at their homes on July 27th. A boy fitting his description had knocked on the doors trying to sell needle sets. But then they say something about a Connecticut woman, and that's when she talks about him not having a New York accent. I would rule that one out. But the one from Lewiston is not that far away from Gray. So maybe there was something there about him actually dragging him around to do like sales with him. Maybe he thought kids are better, like people are going to buy shit from kids, whatever. Maybe it's a whole big scam. But like business cards, did they get a business card from them? Was it actually, because if it's actually Daniel and they had a business card, right? Like that would have been something that could have led to where they're going or who they bought it from, some sort of a receipt. Yeah, Jody, you're right. And people wonder why people don't trust police. I mean, in this case, it doesn't appear, I mean, of course, this was like 70 plus years ago. It doesn't appear as though the police were failing to do their job. At least from the article that we know, right? Because that's about as much information as we can find is what's in this article.
Yeah, a lot of it's like regurgitation. I believe Dark Down East podcast covered the case as well, so go ahead and check that out on her site. Okay, I'm going to share something here.
But yeah, the if that was the case, maybe like what would that have, how would that have played out, right? Like, was he not getting the sales he wanted? He was probably a creep from the start, right?
Yeah, so this is Demers that was ultimately charged with sexually assaulting a 4-year-old granddaughter.
Oh my God.
He tried to commit suicide. Unfortunately, he failed. And I'm quite certain he's passed away now. He'll be 96 now. So he's probably gone. Met his maker. Hey, Jeff, can you pull up Google Earth? Do you have that open by chance already or no? I was going to have you check Gray to Freeport just to see approximately how far down the river that would be. Because like you were talking about him being seen in Lewiston.
Well, someone did ask a question about the population of Gray back in 1954, and from what I'll tell, they don't have Gray's specific population, but the entire state of Maine at 1950 was 900,000 and 910,000, and 1960 was 970,000. So we could assume what 940ish, 950ish thousand. That's the entire state. So like, Gray, yeah, you can extrapolate from there. Gray probably didn't have too many people in it. So you wanted the Google Earth up?
Yeah, I'll read this comment by Guy. He says, "Please get away with murder, that's for sure, especially up in northern Maine." You can only imagine talking about Cole, which is weird because we just talking about Warren Cole, and then there's the Officer Cole up in northern
Chandler
Maine
Cole
that was the last person to see Eric Foote, and then Eric Foote comes up missing after Chandler Cole.
Although
forges
and
his
he
documents.
did, Chandler Cole did was found guilty or confessed whatever to tampering with evidence. But what was his sentence for that? What is he getting charged?
Well, it's all been suspended. Like whatever. I can't remember. I told you this earlier. I don't remember what the numbers were now, but the charges were pretty much time served and suspended, and then like a $250 fine for two different counts. Like, so he's literally slap on the wrist, and he's getting away with this.
So from Freeport to Gray, that's what you're wondering?
Yeah, because that's
It's
where
like
his body's
15
found.
miles.
Can you pull that up on screen just so I can see?
Yep.
Come on. Assuming he was actually murdered in Gray or right around Gray and then dumped in the river somewhere.
Yeah, so there's Gray, there's Freeport, over here. God, there's so many extra things up
And
on
just-
my screen right now.
Yeah, I see that. Androscoggin River. Is that one of the tabs?
Why do I have so much stuff up here right now? Oh my God, it's not getting better. It's getting worse.
It is getting worse. Looks like the varicose veins on my legs.
I don't know.
So yeah, so that Daniel Wood's case is one that you don't really hear a lot of in Maine, and I don't know if it's just because of the year. Like I know when you check online, a lot of them are from like 1970 and newer. So I don't think my wife liked that comment. I really don't have varicose veins. I don't think. But she'd be the one to know.
I don't see. Well, there's the Androscoggin River up there.
All right. And that's where he was found in Freeport.
It has to be over. Well, the river doesn't get near Freeport.
All right. So maybe I shouldn't have had you pull this up.
All right. Sorry if we look like fools here, guys. We're trying. We're not trying to look like fools, but.
Oh, yeah. Tim. So Tim was like saying, I remember my parents discussing the possibility of Warren Cole being involved. Yeah. What was Warren S. Cole, right? I meant to look to see what his birth date was and see how old he would have been at that time. So he died at 87 years old in 2004. Yeah, so he would have been born 1917. So in 1954, he would have been well in the age bracket of someone picking up little boys.
So Dieter is saying, I recognize Demers from when I was a kid. He was friends with my POS grandfather, who was very close with Cole.
Oh, shoot. So you said, what was the relationship she had with Wood? Let's see. Daniel was my uncle's brother. So her grandfather was friends with Cole. So Cole might have had connection to Daniel Wood. I mean, she's basically saying it here, right?
Right.
So I guess Cole also had a little cabin on an island. He would take a canoe and take boys out to his cabin. It's the only cabin on the island. It's just a little small island, little middle of a pond. And other people that lived on the pond thought it was a little weird, but didn't think much about it. But obviously after his conviction, then they think differently, I'm sure.
And Jess says here, I'm confused as to why some of his clothes was found on the bank, possibly trying to cover it up to make it look like he had gone swimming.
Maybe like a drowning or something.
Or like that's the location where he brought him to execute him, right? Because that was further up the river where they found all this stuff, wasn't it? Or did I misread that?
It was further up.
Deirdre's saying, I'm not going to say any more than that. I don't want my family upset with me. Okay, Deirdre. I'm not trying to start problems for you.
So I think it's weird that with as much money as Warren Cole had and how affluent he was, and especially in this area, how I can't find a single picture of him online anywhere. But anyway.
Well, if he's got all kinds of money, maybe someone in the family paid to have it scrubbed.
I guess maybe. All right, so for some reason we've dried up a little bit with the cases, Jeff. I've reached out to, I don't know, 6 to 8 different families to ask them about covering their family's cases or whatever, and either they say they want to, but then they don't get back to me or whatever happens. So you guys have cases that you're familiar with and you want to either come on here and talk to us about the case, or have a family member that would be able to come on and talk to us, we definitely are looking for more cases to cover.
Yeah, or if you guys just have cases in general you want us to cover, you don't necessarily have to come on or anything, but if you got some good ideas for stuff maybe we haven't talked about yet, we're absolutely, the whole point of this is to talk about stuff that no one else is talking about, right? Cases that need attention. So if you guys have any ideas for us, definitely reach out to us. I would say we're pretty responsive, but Travis is pretty responsive when it comes to the messages.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Corey James again for reaching out and asking us to, he didn't even ask us to cover this. He was just brought this to our attention, this case. So Corey, thank you. And I think actually Corey's going to come on sometime and talk to us about some stuff, possibly.
All right, Jess says Jess says there's definitely a case we need to discuss. All right, then.
We can discuss that next week. Stephanie Damron. So I just click off on that for you. Sorry.
No, you're good.
There's a case from down east that Dark Down East covered. Do you remember what that was, Allison? So are you guys okay with that format with just Jeff and I talking? It's a little rough for me, honestly. I really like having a guest on here that not only are you hearing the story from someone close to the case and how it impacts the family, it's also easier for Jeff and I to have someone else doing all the talking.
I don't mind it, but I usually have to have a glass of vodka with me.
Krista Renee says, what about Graham's mom? Yeah, I could reach out to Tammy, see if she'll come back on again. She's been on once before, a year and a half ago, I believe. She's doing a lot right now for Graham with her legislation. Yes. Yeah, I saw that. Proud of her. She's done a lot. Oh, I think I know who Allison's talking about. It's about a girl who either went missing or was murdered. I think she's talking about the one that was found in the lake over there. Chris says, I'll come on overwhelmed with chatter when needed. Christy's a celebrity. She was on Nancy Grace just a couple weeks ago, talking about the Stephanie Damron case. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate you tuning in and watching two bumbling idiots go through the case.
I hope this worked out for everyone. Hopefully, you guys learned something tonight, something new. It's probably not as compelling as what our other stuff is, but we didn't do a case last week, so I didn't want to miss 2 weeks, so we had to jump on here and do this. So I had to do something, but either way, well, thank you guys very much for joining us as always. Hopefully, we have something a bit more compelling next week to get you guys back in. But thank you all as always for sticking with us. We appreciate it.
And if you want to go back through, we're available on YouTube, also any podcast platform. If you like just listen to audio, we've got 5 years worth of cases. So if you're new to this, because Daniel Wood brought you here, let's make sure you follow us on any podcast platform. So,
all right, everyone. Guys. Thank you guys very much for joining us. We will we'll see you next week. All right, take care.
For 5-year-old Taylor Williams led investigators to Alabama this week.
So we have some breaking news from Florida. An arrest has been made in connection.
After years of agony, a glimmer of hope for the family.
Investigators spent hours searching through this house off Pennsylvania Avenue.
What could be a major development in the search for missing Alabama teenager.
Tonight, a stunning twist in the search for Taylor.
Somebody out there knows something.
They want to lay him to rest their way, not by somebody else's way.